Surrey is one of BC's fastest growing cities and over the last several years has seen massive change and development. Our guest today, Adrian Cabanos with RE/MAX 2000 Realty, has been a real estate agent for over 6 years and has helped over 200 families buy, sell, and invest in real estate. Adrian today will be sharing the activity levels he's seeing in the market and some advice he's giving his buyers. So Adrian, I know you're recently a father to a young baby boy. How are you enjoying it, and how's the work-life balance treating you? Are you getting any sleep?
Great question. Being a father, a new father actually, has definitely opened up my eyes in terms of what's important to me and what I value. And it's been a great ride right now, and he's 7 months old coming up next week, so he's definitely growing and definitely seeing the progress and change, which is awesome. He just started to crawl just last week, showed his first tooth, and he's starting to stand on his own now with some assistance. So it's huge milestones every single time. Like every week is always different, and the lack of sleep is definitely a real thing that I so it's if you have a kid, you definitely will experience that. But he's been really good. He sleeps between 8 to 10 hours every night now since we've done sleep training, so that's awesome. And but the parents out there, if your kid has struggled with sleeping, don't worry, you'll get through it. And and definitely wish you guys all the best here. So but no, having a kid is awesome, and trying to balance that work-life balance is a key aspect in my life here, and a huge importance of what I do in the business. Like the business is still a priority, but at the same time, being with family is very important to me. So if I can commit to maybe a few hours a day, or in the morning, in the evening time once I'm done work, I'll definitely share and take advantage of that opportunity. But yeah, the work-life balance it can be difficult in terms of us being entrepreneurs and self-employed business owners. It's hard. We don't have a set schedule for most of the time, but luckily I have a very great support. Like my wife is very supportive in what I do, and she's like the backbone basically in our household. And I can't thank her enough for what she's sacrificing every day and what she's going through. Women are a different breed for sure in terms of what they go through this whole this birthing stage, and nurturing a child and taking care of them. So something that I can't do for sure.
Yeah, well, congratulations. That's such an exciting time of all your lives, and sounds like you do have a really good grasp of it. So if I ever cross that stage in my life, might have to give you a call for some of those pointers there.
No problem.
Yeah. So you previously worked as with a top producing team in the Fraser Valley, and now working as a solo agent. Talk about the evolution there in your career.
Great question. So basically, I was working in a high producing team for the last 7 years, the Mafora Group, and that's when we did on average over 200 homes a year. Personally, myself, I would do about 40 deals within that 200 there. So a good chunk or good quarter of my volume goes towards that. Thank you so much for their opportunity. Without them, definitely I wouldn't have met the individuals, the relationships I built, and the network that I've built through them. But I left for one of the reasons was to basically start my own practice, and now to commit myself to helping individuals with real estate and investment properties. So that's one of my biggest endeavors and commitment now, is providing that opportunity to people where they can invest through real estate, just because I feel like there's a huge dent in the marketplace where there's not many specialists out there that's catered towards this type of practice, and I think everyone can definitely benefit from. So that's definitely a huge thing and a huge step for me. When I left, it felt like my back was against the wall again, but that definitely just provided a lot more motivation and drive to become better, and to become a better agent, and that way I can better serve my clients more. But the whole process was going through like rebranding, redoing operations, and just mastering the skills that I have, and providing more service.
That's great. Exciting new chapter for you. And so what areas of the I guess the Lower Mainland? I know you're out living in the Fraser Valley in the Surrey area, but what What areas do you service? And I know you're talking about the investment side of your business. So what areas or markets are you covering right now?
Great question. So my business, my network that I've built has taken me all the way from downtown all the way to Chilliwack, and even looking areas like in the Okanagan, but primarily my service area would be the Fraser Valley, mainly the Surrey area, simply because I grew up here, went to high school here, elementary school here, before going to real estate, I worked in the Surrey Wally Center for more than 5 years or so while it was still growing. But now, mainly my business, since because an investor, if you're a smart investor, depending if you're shopping locally or out of the city, I think it's in your best interest to kind of consider what options are out there. So for me, getting into that space has really opened up my level of knowledge to look into other areas, not just in here, right? So that way I can provide a better answer opportunity for the investor that I'm working with. But hey, if you're here, if you want to shop locally here in Surrey, like I know everything to the back of my head kind of thing, all the way down to the streets to avoid and kind of thing. And yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and on some of those markets that you primarily focus on, maybe touch on some of the activity levels you're seeing, days on market, the prices, and maybe the amount of offers that you're getting on these different properties.
Great question, Austin. So what we're seeing now is unprecedented levels in terms of sales activity. So basically, because of the low inventory shortage that we're experiencing right now, we're like at a 50% drop for most of these areas in terms of inventory levels.
Wow.
So right now, like the average benchmark for the Fraser Valley is $1.5 million now, which is a 39% increase from last year, which is insane. And then the average days on market for a detached is about 24 days on average, depending on the type of property, the conditions it's in, the locations it's in. Townhouse is about 765,000 as a benchmark price, which is up by 32%. And those ones are seeing on average about 14 days on the market. And then condos were around 550,000, and which is a 25% increase. But if I were to break it down in terms of like the Surrey neighborhood, like the Wally, we're looking at a little bit more expensive at 1.63 for the detached, and townhouses are around just under 900,000 for if you want to buy a townhouse in the Wally, North Surrey area. And what I'm seeing in terms of activity right now is just insane. Like for detached, on average, we're competing against 10 to 15 offers at a time. And then most of these offers, if like 95% of them are subject free, meaning no conditions, no contingencies, and usually with a bank draft. And the average prices are selling between 150 to 200K on the detached side, right? And then for the townhouse market, we're looking anywhere between 6 to 10 offers, and on average over asking, I would say around 75 to 150,000, depending where it's first listed at. Do keep in mind, a lot of the advertised price online are the starting bid prices. And typically what follows after the home gets listed, we are seeing offer deadline being instructed and scheduled for the following weekend. And that's where we're seeing the huge influx of just buyer demand and who's competing against them. And then even for the condo market, it's definitely increased over the last month and a half here, where we're seeing between 3 to 5 offers, and depending on the age, condition, right, we are seeing subject free condition, and then on average we're seeing over asking price around the 50K, and I haven't seen 100K yet lately, but between 25 and 50K is what I see on average in terms of like the condo market right now. And the biggest challenges is just getting inventory right now and trying to get into the market. So that just kind of give you like guys a snapshot of basically what the activity levels are happening right now. But just for example, like this is one property in Maple Ridge that I saw. It was listed for 1.5, sold for 1.925. And then there was another property in Sullivan here in Surrey where it was listed for 1.5. Probably not the greatest house that I've seen. I sold, and this one was listed at 1.5, sold around 1.9, just for like an average 5 bedroom, 4 bathroom, 3,000 square feet, lots not even that big. And then just the previous month, I sold a property brand new, almost 4,000 square feet for 1.95, right? For, 50,000 more. So I think because of the inventory levels right now is bringing a huge demand of price inflation, and because of the low interest rates right now, I still think people are still trying to take advantage of the low interest rates, and simply buyer demand and supply and prices are still getting inflated right now.
That's great, great data. Thank you for sharing all that, and as well as mixing in the commentary on top of that. From what the data lines up to be, it sounds like a good time of the year to be on the selling side of a property. So when working with your sellers right now, they obviously are hearing this commentary in the market. They're seeing what their friend's house sold for. How are you positioning your sellers, and how are you giving them advice in what appears to be a very strong seller's market?
Great question. So in terms of right now, yes, it's a seller's market right now. So more leverage to the seller of what's happening. So the advice I'm giving my sellers are a few things. Is basically, if you want to move, if you're looking to move and get into a new home in the same type of market conditions, the following advice and tip strategies I would give is, the number one question they always ask is, where do we go? So I think that's one of the leading factors of why people are not listing their homes right now, even besides it being an investment property or a tenanted occupied property. But let's say it's your average, household that wants to move or transition from, or downsize or upsize into a newer home. The strategy I would definitely give to them is back option, right? So since you do have the leverage of a seller's market, you can exercise or try to negotiate a rent back option in the events where the buyer would take ownership on a property, and then you would act as like a tenant for an X amount of period of time as under a lease contract or a lease agreement, where A, you're still protected under the Residential Tenancy Act, and then B, you're not worrying about where to go after, because you can still remain in the home, right? But another thing I would add to that as well is a longer completion date, right? So let's say, if you put your home on the market and you want to list it, right, and you do get a very competitive offer, and the dates are, not to your satisfaction, or say you haven't found anything yet, you can definitely negotiate a longer period of dates. So there are some offers that I have dealt with in the past month here, where we're negotiating 4 to 5 to 6 month completion, but with also an option to extend or to have the lease, or have the dates earlier, right, upon given notice. So let's say if in the event if you do find something sooner, then we can definitely exercise the clause where you can change your dates within 30 days sooner, or if you want, you can do it later. So that way you're protected on that end as well, right? And that's in case if you do find a property sooner. Or you can definitely, if it's like you do need to get out, another option would be to find like a short-term Airbnb option, right, for the duration. Or you can even rent for the time being if you wanted to, if you can't do a rent back option. Or you can possibly do a bridge finance option as well. So meaning, like, if you do find a property, we do property and we do lock it up, pay the deposit, all the conditions are removed, for example, and let's say we're and it's like X amount of period of time to bridge the payments in, then you can probably exercise a bridge financing option where you will take ownership on the new place, and then you're getting a loan for that difference of the duration from your purchase completion and your sale completion, right? So that's basically the advice I'm giving for the sellers right now. It's been working from what I'm seeing. Like, we're still doing deals here and there, but obviously, at the end of the day, it's what the seller's best interest will be. And yeah, if there's, but these are some of the tips and strategies I would give them in today's market.
And then to kind of jump onto the other side of things, as you mentioned before, many of these have multiple offers, subject free. At times like this, how important is it to have, an agent on your side, like yourself, helping your buyers and having some knowledge of these markets, and how to go about purchasing these properties?
For sure. Definitely. I believe it's a huge value to have a buyer's agent work for you. It doesn't cost you anything. So why not take advantage of that resources, where someone is an expert in the marketplace, experts in contracts, and experts in, presenting the offers as well. But yes, it's a very, very competitive market right now, and you need to, if you're going to be shopping for a home, we need to have all the ducks in the row to have it all lined up where when we are presenting your offer, it's the most competitive. And to answer your question, Austin, yes, most offers are winning and they are subject free. So meaning no contingencies, no inspections, right? And basically, with that being said, if we don't have a subject-free condition offer, here's some advice I would give is basically having lesser conditions, right? Shorter conditional periods if possible, right? Instead of 5 to 7 business days, trying to do a 1 or 3 business day. If we can satisfy your conditions prior to the deadline, meaning like reviewing the strata documents, reviewing title certificates, disclosure statements, right? Maybe getting a pre-approval letter in place as well. Right, those are definitely a huge advantage to make your offer a bit more competitive. I always like to attach a pre-approval letter provided by the lender stipulating how confident you are with the financing, shouldn't be any concerns or issues. I also like to attach a buyer's letter or like a cover letter explaining about the buyer and showcasing who they are. Maybe attach like a little picture of them to kind of have that personal touch to them and for them to reconsider instead of just it being the terms, right? So maybe they want the home to go to a nice family, for example, or if they have relatives in the area, maybe that's some good information for the seller to know that might influence their decision, right? Another strategy that I've been doing as well is offer to pay for the seller's legal fees. Right? Seen that like in a while lately, so that can definitely be arranged, or even offer to pay for their strata fees for like 6 months or 7 months of the year kind of thing, right? Or let's say a deposit, very high risk though, but if the deposit, if you want, you can negotiate the deposit to be paid to the seller directly, so that way they can have the funds already secured for their deposit, right? It's still incorporating to their down payment, but there is risk there, obviously, when you are dealing with earnest money paying directly to the vendor. But that's just a strategy or tip definitely you can try exercising. Or for a buyer's sake, best case scenario would be to find a property off market, right? So a lot of the transactions or deals we do in our office, I would say about like 50% of them are done off market. And that's a good opportunity for buyers to get a property, and you're not competing against with the property being listed on MLS there.
I like that. I like that point about the legal fees. It's an interesting negotiation tactic. It's you're still negotiating at a absolute price value, but it's a different way of positioning it, and feel like you're giving them something, even though it's still there's a monetary value associated with it, rather than offering maybe that price amount higher. So that's a cool way of looking at it. I know you mentioned you do work with real estate investors. Kind of a point blank question. If I was an investor looking for an investment property that has the potential to positive cash flow, which area and which product class would you point me towards right now?
Right now for product, it depends how much down payment you're putting, but let's say you're just putting the most minimum amount of down, 20% down for an investment property. Areas I would consider are high growth areas with high density. Well, here in the Fraser Valley, I would consider, like Central Abbotsford, for example, West Abbotsford. You're looking areas like in Surrey, like the Wally Center, Fleetwood right now, Guildford are really hot right now because of the new SkyTrain station that's coming out, right? So you have that potential there. Cloverdale is definitely a good option too, since they're rebuilding and redeveloping the old Cloverdale area where the new hospital will go. And then even areas like in South Surrey, for example. But in terms of where my investors are shopping right now, those are the areas I would consider. If you want to do a little bit, if you're in the greater Vancouver, maybe like Pitt Meadows, Poco, all the way up until Mission, right, which are good options too. But if you want to buy like a detached and cash flow from the rental income, for example, I would consider maybe things like Kamloops in the Okanagan, right? Kelowna, Penticton, Vernon, for example, where the rents are just as high as here, but you can definitely get a detached for under $1 million now. So.
Yeah, it's very important for investors like that to consider all the different areas, and it's interesting to hear Kamloops in the mix there. And Surrey City Center has seen so much transformation there in the last few years. Maybe talk a little bit about that transformation and where you see it moving there in the future.
Great question. So right now, where I used to work in the Surrey Center place 10 years ago, so I've seen definitely a lot of development and changes throughout the past. Basically, like right now, in terms of construction wise, there's 18 new construction buildings that are basically coming up that have broken ground, high rise and low rise. And there's actually 30 more approved condos and towers, but have not broken ground yet or not even advertised, right? So, that's already about 52 towers already coming up in the next, I would say, 10 years, which is crazy. And in terms of the growth in the city now, right there, so much things have changed. Like the population is growing exponentially, right? They're growing, or right now they're projected, at least in Surrey, to hit almost 630,000 people in 2026, and in 2041 at least almost 780,000, which they projected for Surrey to be the most populated city in all of BC, right? Which is huge. And right now, as you may know, the most recent acquisition was the UBC expansion down on Fraser Highway in King George here, where they're going to add another campus. And they already have SFU and they already have Quallen Park University, right? But on top of that too, they have that new SkyTrain station that will be coming by 2028 that's connecting from Surrey to Langley, which definitely I think will bring a lot more into the city. They're expecting about 1,000 new residents coming into the Surrey neighborhood, but specifically, in terms of what's happening in the Surrey Center area, like a commercial building, like Save on Foods just opened up too as well. So that's a huge, having a nice local grocery store in the area, especially stone throw steps away from the SkyTrain, and then what's happening right now in terms of immigrants, right? I just found this crazy stat about 41% of our residents are immigrants, and the leading immigration ethnicity was Indians, or from India, sorry, and then the Philippines, and then China, right? So that's a very unique stat there. So half the population is almost immigrants, which is crazy. So I think with this major development happening in the Surrey Wally Center, I think it's going to be huge, especially with the new, they're very big into like their parks, their festivals, right? So down at the park there that they have at the Holland Park, which is amazing. So
very diverse, very diverse cultures, and also incredible to hear the amount of growth, both from a development standpoint and from a population growth perspective. And on that topic of the pre-sales there in Surrey City Center, have you sold any clients into those types of developments? And if so, are there any developments in specifically on the pre-sale side in Surrey City Center that you personally like?
Great. Yeah, for sure. So right now, like we have like the buildings I would recommend are like the Concord Towers, like the Park Georges, Park Boulevards. Those are really good towers. Georgetown by Anthem Group, right? They I believe they have about seven towers coming out there, right? They're just finishing their first one right now. Parkway by Boza is coming out as well in the next week or two. So that's actually one of the newest high rises that's going to be available. And then in terms of like other high rise and low rise, there's the Grand by Allure Ventures. There's also City Parkway and Gateway condos by Hanson Pacific, Park Central as well. And then one of the newer ones in close by would be Prosper by Mountain Creations, which would be a low rise coming out in the next 2 weeks here. But these are the ones that's basically being advertised for sale, and these are the ones that I would definitely recommend in terms of purchasing. The King George Hub was one that I recently sold. There are sold out now, but keep an eye out for any new resale opportunities there. That's the one right across the UBC expansion on Fraser Highway in King George, and they're building up to at least 5 more towers there. So yeah, and that's where the Save On Foods is located there. And from what I remember, there's going to be a movie theater there. I don't know if it's Landmark or if it's going to be Cineplex, but that'll be like a kind of almost like a Brentwood type of experience and lifestyle there.
Yeah, obviously so much residential development happening going on in Surrey there. And as you mentioned, some commercial developments with the Save On Foods. Maybe on a more of a personal question, any new restaurants, any favorite restaurants in that area that you, your family, clients like to go?
Jollibee. If you ever hear about Jollibee, that's like a Filipino staple right now that I heard it's coming into that area. So,
Unreal.
which is good. They definitely need to bring more restaurants here and more nightlife, I guess you can say, into the Surrey City area. Just in general, and mainly, it's not like Vancouver or like Richmond or Burnaby where there's an influx of just restaurants and, like we don't even have a Cactus Club out here. It's in Delta. So.
Maybe our next podcast is filmed live at Jollibee.
There'll be lineups all the way around the block once it's open.
We'll say we know you. And how is on the work and personal side, how has social media helped you grow your real estate business? How has being on Instagram, Facebook, how has that stuff allowed you to stay connected with people and also kind of grow your business?
So before, in the last like few years, I wasn't too active on my social media campaign in terms of providing content value, even posting or anything like that. I very kept it private for the last little bit here, but since going on my own, I kind of just wanted to re-emphasize or revisit that to let people know that I'm still here. Like, people search me up on Google, like I have over 50 5-star reviews kind of thing, right? But but that's mainly for people already know me. So now one of my commitments or goals this year was to definitely rebuild and re-strategize my social media campaign, just to provide more value and content on that end, because I'm already busy as it is, even without it. So my mentality was I didn't want to commit to this type of platform in case I get too busy where I can't service the people that need servicing, right? So now, ever since the rebranding, redoing operations, and now doing social media, how it's impacted my business, and ever since I redid that, like people have been messaging me here and there, and letting them know that I still exist in such a way. But now I want to be able to provide more value to these people, and that way I can service them more. And that way I have the capacity to do that. So, but definitely has changed my business perspective, and it's just another platform for my clients to definitely benefit from.
Yeah, definitely. Social media, more and more, everyone's seeing it. Everyone's following the people they want to follow. And those Google reviews are obviously, very helpful for people who maybe don't know you. It can go on and have some reference. If people are looking to get in touch with you, maybe look at some of these properties we just talked about, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
The best way to contact me is through either email, text, phone call, WhatsApp. You can just Google me, and yeah, my name should just pop up in the first link there. And if you ever want to discuss about the home buying process, the selling process, getting to investment properties, or even talk about the metaverse, what's been going on right now. So
there's a whole other podcast right now.
Oh.